And good morning, everyone. I'll give it probably just a minute longer for folks to hop on. Actually, they've got time. We'll start talking, start chatting, and then they'll hop on when they're ready. But it's nice to see you all. So my name is David Patterson. I'm with Connect-OC, the Connect-OC Coalition. It's been a little bit since I've been able to join you all, but I'm excited to be back. As you all may recall from our last meeting, our good friend Blair Varasa, who has long been the host for our meetings, has stepped down from her role with Connect-OC to be home with her baby girl. And of course, we're really happy for her, even though we're very sad to lose her. But that means you guys are stuck with me. So, you know, insult to injury. No, but I'm actually really happy to be back with you guys. I was with you for a little bit of time at the end of last year, and so I'm happy to be kind of helping lead these meetings again and guide some of these conversations. I'm really excited for today's conversation on friendship. We'll get to that in a bit, but for the time being, I just want to encourage everybody, as usual, please introduce yourself in the chat. Let folks know a little bit about yourself, who you are, what organization you're with. If you're with an organization, it's also okay to just be with yourself. And if you are especially wanting to be able to have others contact you, feel free to include contact information as well as you introduce yourself. But we welcome everybody to do that in the chat. Hopefully everybody got the agenda. We'll do a quick run through just in case. We're going to start off this morning. Well, what we're doing right now, a little bit of housekeeping, and then we're going to have our spotlight presentation on friendship. I'm excited both for the conversation, for the group that we have to discuss that subject. And then we're going to do some updates for what's happening with us, Connect-OC this month and coming up soon. And then we're going to switch to some partner updates. We're going to take a little bit of time during the partner update to allow one of our panelists, Andi K. with the Bloom Foundation, to share about a really cool event that's happening this weekend. Connect-OC is going to be there, going to be partnering with Be Well, a lot of really great stuff happening. And so keep an eye out in the chat. There's going to be a flyer and a link for registration. We'll also talk to you a little bit about how you can, at other points, how you can find out more information about it. And we'll give Andi some time to share about it, and then we'll open up to all of you to share any updates that you have going on for this month or coming up soon. And then we'll go from there. So as you all are introducing yourself, we'll switch over to our conversation. I'll give some room for our panelists to introduce themselves. We'll kind of just follow down the list as it is on the agenda. So I'll open it up with Anna. Anna, if you wouldn't mind, Anna Hernandez, if you wouldn't mind sharing just a bit about who you are and what brings you to our meeting today. And yeah.
Hi, so I'm Anna. I actually don't work for Partners for Wellness or Connect-OC. I just graduated from Vanguard University. It's in Orange County, so you might be familiar with it. And I work in behavioral therapy as an RBT, but mental health is just something that I am also very passionate about.
And thank you for joining on. Good to have you. So we will follow up with Andi.
Great, thank you. I'm Andi. I'm the founder and executive director of Bloom Foundation. And thank you, David, for mentioning the event. We're holding Back to You tomorrow at Bonita Keenan Sports Park, and I'll be sharing a little bit more about that, but there'll be yoga in the morning, self-defense in the afternoon, and free lunch and coffee from Moon Goat Coffee Roasters. So would love to see you all there. I know free coffee is always a plus, but I'm looking forward to sharing as well. Thank you.
You have my attention. Yeah, great. Thanks, Andi. Thanks for joining in. All right, and then so, and things kind of switched up on my screen, so I'm just checking. We also have Cynthia Rodriguez joining from Straight Talk. She was having a little trouble on her end, some technical issues. I'm not sure if she was able to hop back on. But Cynthia, if you're here, feel free to introduce yourself. Okay.
David, she's still having technical difficulties, but I'll go ahead and introduce her on behalf of the organization. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mercedes Azueta. One of our panelists today is Cynthia Rodriguez. She is a LMFT with Straight Talk Counseling, as well as a clinical supervisor.
Great. Thanks, Mercedes. Yeah, I was saying earlier that I was definitely sympathizing with Cynthia because I was having some trouble myself this morning. So we know how it goes sometimes. But hopefully she'll join on with us soon. We're looking forward to having her. And then last but absolutely not least, Joy Medina.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joy Medina. I'm an intern here at Connect OC, and I invited Anna. She's a close friend of mine, so we'll talk on friendship today.
Great. Thanks, Joy. All right, so we'll hop on in, and we'll start with kind of the big question. So the subject today, right, is not just about friendship, but we're looking at the ways in which friendship is supportive overall of mental wellness, mental health. You know, we talk a lot about the importance of communal support, social supports in mental health recovery, overall mental wellness. So we're kind of dialing in a little bit to talk about the idea of friendship and what does friendship look like? What does healthy friendship look like? How do we manage when when we're having difficulties in friendships? How do we manage, especially for this age group, for the young adult, the TAY age group, you know, when we're in a major transition point in our lives, one of the things that sometimes shifts is our social life, right? Our community. And so what does it look like to build new friendships in new places or discover friendships during life transitions? Or sometimes what does it look like to let friendships go along with all of the sometimes grieving that can come along with that or the difficulties that can come along with that in those moments of transition, those periods of transition. So opening up to everybody in our group, and what I maybe do just to keep life easy for us and keep it moving, I might call on you to share, but for our panelists, in what ways do you see friendship as supportive of mental health or mental wellness? And Andi, maybe if you wouldn't mind kicking us off.
Sure. So I forgot in my introduction to share a little bit more about Bloom Foundation. So we exist to empower and encourage young women to essentially grow through bullying. And that's a big part of my story as well. After experiencing some cyberbullying, both in middle school and in later years, that really affected my personal mental health and wellness, and then also how I approached friendships and navigated those as well. So I think that friendships can be very supportive, definitely. They can also be points of conflict, though, and of, unfortunately, bullying. But I do think that in my experience of going through that, friendship is absolutely the antidote, and it can really create almost a buffer or a shield around you so that even if you are experiencing both challenges or negativity from other people that can constitute as bullying, you at least have that shield around you or that support system that you can lean on. And they can also help you identify the good in you, which I think is really important, because I think sometimes often we can go through things and feel really bad about ourselves, but friends can be the person who's uplifting you and helping you see beyond your current circumstances. And I think that goes beyond bullying, but just in life in general. And it's really special thing.
Yeah, Andi, thank you for that. I love that. You know, I especially like the phrase, the antidote, right? This sense in which, you know, I'm a big part of bullying, much like a big part of when we are struggling with our mental health, is there can part of that pain is the isolation experience, right? Yeah. Often, especially when a group of people, right, are bullying someone, there's just, you isolate that person. Right. And so friendship being certainly the opposite, the antidote to isolation.
Right. Right. Yes. And that, I think that's why there has been such an emphasis on bystanders and really empowering bystanders, because in essence, that's being a friend when someone most needs it. And that really helps diffuse situations when the person who's being bullied is not alone anymore. Yeah. It's like more of a team almost.
That's great. Yeah. I love the idea of moving the bystander role beyond just intervention to an extension of friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
That's great. Joy, why don't you jump in for us?
Yeah, totally. So for me, I think that not only that does that support really help and about friendship, but also just like they help you to restructure like your mindset and like the way you think. So if you're venting to them, they can, remind you like, hey, like this is unlike you to think this way, or reminding you of the positives. Anna and I, we went through our last senior year together in college, and we had all the same classes or most of the same classes, and we were just like each other's support systems and reminding each other to like think of the positives. And it really helped just like have that extra person just reminding you of like your own mindsets and like the way you think, like, but when you're going through it, it's kind of hard to think that way. So it's really nice to have that person reminding you like, hey, this is unlike you, like, or checking in on you. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's great, kind of both somebody who can help us go through the tough stuff, but also remind us a little bit more about who we are, especially when in those moments we start to forget. Right? Yeah. Thanks, Joy. Anna, how about for you?
Yeah, I think especially like since I know Joy and we went through college together, um, like what really helped me, since I am a very like emotional person and I do like to feel my emotions,
Mhm.
it's really helpful to have a friend that is just checking up on you, because there's nothing wrong with feeling your emotions and like actually just going through them, especially when you've gone through something, but just making sure that they're okay and that it's not like anything too bad. And if it's not okay, like getting you some help and like being just that support that you need, and just saying like, hey, I'm just here, like just if you need somebody to talk to, maybe if you just want to go grab coffee, we don't even have to talk. Like I know me and Joy would do that all the time, like in between classes we would just go get coffee and just like de-stress. Like sometimes we wouldn't even need to talk about anything, but just having like that comfort there and that person like just being there is enough.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like for you, the big part of it is not only that support, but somebody you can actually be vulnerable with and still be seen and received in that vulnerability. Yeah. Right. So pick up a few themes, right? It's capacity to be vulnerable, it's capacity to have someone in our lives who sees us and knows us to such an extent that they can identify when we're struggling and encourage us, right? To such an extent that they can point us a way forward or remind us a bit about who we are when we, in those moments of challenge, forget a bit about who we are. Someone who can be supportive of us and be bold enough to be a friend even when we are experiencing isolation or mistreatment by others. Yeah, it's great. Thank you all. So we touched on this already a little bit, but maybe I'll invite you all to expand if you're open to it, and then I'll maybe combine a couple of questions if you don't mind. So the next question is, in what ways have you experienced this personally? Each of you have touched on this a little bit, but I'd welcome you to expand that a little bit more. And then along as you're talking about it, maybe what do you value most in a friendship? So what I'll do is just kind of open it up to the group, and whoever feels to our panel, and whoever feels most ready to jump in, feel free.
I can start off. For me, I think that something that I value most is loyalty, and just like knowing that they're going to be there, even if that you haven't seen each other in a while, just like knowing that they're going to be there and they still love you and support you. Because and during this, these times, it's an adulthood, you get older, you don't see your friends as often, you don't, you kind of just like do your own thing because life happens. But knowing that like you have those few friends that are just going to be there for you, even if you really need them, or whenever, like loyalty is huge.
Yeah, knowing there's people you can truly rely on even when things are difficult, right?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Anna.
I think kind of going off of that, like loyalty and like trustworthy, someone who's like really trustworthy is like really important too. I know like in my past, like I've been friends with people, and I mean, you live and you learn, but I've been friends with people who like, I'll tell them something and I feel like, oh, I could trust them, and like I could tell them this, like that happened to me and it's really personal, but then they go and they tell somebody else. So I think somebody who's very trustworthy is really important, so that you know that like this isn't gonna get out, like I can trust in this person, and like they're just gonna give me good information that they have, and like they just want what's best for me. They don't want to like just be spreading this gossip and everything. Like they just want what's best.
Yep. Yeah. And going off of that too, I think just saying someone who's a safe space for you and like
Mhm.
doesn't hold judgment, or it's a judgment-free place almost, where you can get things off your chest. And it's, I guess it's being an accepting of you as well with all of your flaws, and just being a really safe place. And like, yeah, just the secrets are safe, or, you know, confidentiality and also loyalty exists there as well. It's really important.
Yeah, thank you. Also, what I'm hearing so far is there's really a lot of interconnection, right? This idea that a friend is loyal, is someone who stands with us and stands by us even in difficult moments, even if that difficult moment involves us kind of standing against someone else, right? To a certain extent, that we can confide in that person with a trust that we won't be judged, that we'll be accepted kind of as we are, that we will not have to worry about that person then turning around and sharing what we've shared with them inappropriately with somebody else, right? Somebody who we really know cares about us and sees us for who we are in total, despite wherever we might be in that moment, when we're chatting with them, when we're spending time with them. Cynthia, good to have you back. So what we are doing, a couple of things to catch up. Mercedes introduced you for us. We're really glad to have you on. What we're talking about now is, what do you all, I was asking everybody, what do you all value most in a friendship? What do you think is most important for you personally in a friendship?
And someone mentioned something similar, but discretion. You know, that when you share something with them, or the things that you do with them, that they're not out there and telling everyone else that this is a connection, that there's a special connection, and that privacy of being able to know that my information, that my actions, what I'm doing is between you and I, that it's not being disseminated to everyone else. I think that provides feelings of this is a safe relationship, and I can trust, and I can be myself.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's such an interesting thing, because so often we think about friendship on one level, we think about just the people we spend time with, who we share common interests with, who we enjoy their company, that kind of thing. But I'm really valuing right now and appreciative of this really, we're getting to the core. You know, what extends friendship to something more meaningful than just the people I spend time with, the people who I share common interests with. And really kind of drives at the core of, what is it like to have somebody in my life who I can share whatever with, and I can trust them on a couple of levels, trust them to receive me as I am, to embrace me, to be seen by that person, free of judgment, but also trust that they're going to keep what I confide in them private, right? This is an important, if sometimes rare, thing. So I'm valuing all of this. I appreciate you all. Cynthia, I did want to open up to you. One of our earlier conversations, or one of our earlier questions, was, in what ways do you see friendship as supportive of mental health or mental wellness?
I think it's one of the most fundamental things that supports mental health, right? Because we know that as individuals, as humans, we thrive in connecting with others. right? And that connection is going to be fundamental, not just for, let's say, the technical support. I need someone who's going to go with me here, or if I have any material or needs, they're going to be able to support me. But it's also the needed connection on a molecular level, if you want to put it that way. The touch, the laughter, the sight, the everything that's going to nurture our mind and our body. It's again, as humans, what we seek, connection and different types of levels.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Cynthia, in terms of, connection does happen at different levels. And we have friends who are in some ways friends, we kind of use that term so broadly, right, to describe a range of kind of a similar type of relationship, but that has a range of depth to it, right? And it sounds like a lot of what we're driving at, in our conversation is at the core of a really meaningful friendship is this capacity for intimacy, right? Which I think is something that sometimes we can lose out of a sense of, right? If we think of friendship primarily as people I spend time with and whom I share common interest with, right? We can have that with somebody and really not have a meaningful sense of intimacy in that relationship. And it is that intimate, as valuable as those other types of friendship are, it really is that intimacy that drives a meaningful experience of connection. So I'm thinking about, kind of the flip side of this. There's a couple of ways to think about a flip side of this. On the one hand, there is the experience that we have if we lack this kind of friendship, loneliness, of maybe a sense of isolation. And so maybe you all could share about the other one we'll come to maybe in a minute is the outer side of this. Sometimes the more concentrated efforts to keep somebody isolated, something like bullying that we've touched on a little bit now. So maybe what we'll do is, if you all would feel free to share a little bit about how you think about friendship as an antidote to loneliness or isolation. We've touched on it a little bit here, maybe comment a little bit more if you're able. And then Andi, after that, I invite you maybe to share a little bit more about how you think about friendship as an antidote to bullying. I know we've touched on it, but if you have any further thoughts. So I'll open that up to our panel.
I'm happy to start too. I could
Thanks,
start
Andi.
off.
Yeah, that's great.
So I think with bullying, there are very heavy things that one experiences, because it's a lot of shame, because whether it's physical, verbal, or social exclusion, you're definitely feeling a lot of heavy feelings, and a lot of that's shame. And shame is a very violent emotion. It can be very isolating. It can really drag you down, lead to depression and anxiety. So I think what friendship does is helps lift some of that. It really helps, you're not alone in it. When you can share that, also with shame, when it exists in darkness and just by itself, it grows, right? But if you can bring a friend in, or also therapist, or, a professional, you can really help bring that to light. And then it's more easy to deal with, and it's more easy to address and navigate and break it down and, grow from it, essentially. So I think that friendship is really that piece where you are no longer carrying this really heavy backpack, really heavy burden all by yourself. And as we were all saying on panel 2 before, friendship helps you tell you who you are, which you really need in that moment. It builds back up your sense of self-concept. So, again, like, this isn't who I am, this is who I am, and I can get through this. And it's really key, because I know, in the worst cases, we're really seeing terrible things happen from bullying, because it's such a destructive destructive process, I think. So I think that it really just helps bring it to light and makes it lighter too.
Andi, that's really beautiful, really profound. I loved especially something you said, that shame is a violent emotion, I think is what you said. That's such an interesting and profound way of putting it.
Yeah, I heard actually a counselor say that shame and regret happen to be very violent emotions that can really easily bring you down, I think, quicker than others.
Yeah. I think about I'm sure all of us at some point or other have experienced shame and regret, right? And think about your thought life when you're in a state of shame or regret, a place of shame or regret. You're tearing yourself down the whole time. And the idea that a friend, someone who sees you as more than whatever it is you may be regretting, whatever it is you may be ashamed of, can help pull you out of that, because to what Joy had commented earlier, they can help you gain a fuller perspective, right? Remind you a bit of who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That's right.
Thank you. Yeah. Joy, were you gonna jump in?
So what Andi said, I loved how she said, like, it's ultimately like sharing that load with someone else. Like, instead of carrying a huge backpack by yourself, like, you're sharing the load. And I think that empathy has a lot to do with that, and like feeling someone else's emotion and then letting them know like you see them, you hear them, you're there, and like if they need anything, like you're there for them. And just like that empathy is really key.
Yeah, empathy, right, is that kind of answer to judgment, right? Empathy is that if I can empathize with someone's experience, whether or not I've been in their shoes, and usually that comes from a place of care, then I'm not gonna judge them for whatever they're gonna go through. I'm gonna wanna help them. I'm gonna wanna help carry that burden. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Joy. Anna, Cynthia, how about for you?
Yeah, I think for me it's really important to have like a friendship that like knows like kind of my habits in general. Like I'm someone who like loves to post like on social media, and like I love to like call everyone, see how they're doing, you know. So like noticing like when I pull back, because when I am like going through stuff and I'm like going through my emotions, I don't like people seeing that side of me, because sometimes it can feel like a burden too, even though it's not. Like, they're your friends, that's what they're there for, to support you. But sometimes it can feel like that, and you just kind of want to go through it alone. So that's where like that isolation comes in. But they're like, no, it's okay, like I'm your friend, like this is what I'm here for, like let me help you. And then you're kind of reminded of that again, that like, oh, yeah, I don't have to go through this by myself. Like it is okay that I'm feeling this way, and like it's okay to talk about it. Like maybe you don't want to talk about it too much, but like it's okay to let somebody know that you're not okay, and like that you need somebody to check on you at that time.
And that's great. How common is it that we have this idea when we think about we're going through something, and one of the things that sometimes get in the way of us sharing it with somebody else is, I don't want to burden anyone else, right? But yeah, friendship can be an antidote to that, by having someone who is in your life and saying, no, I care about you. I want to share this with you. Yeah, thank you. Cynthia, how about for you?
This brings me to one of the issues, or not issues, but the main skills necessary for a good friendship, which is communication. And it's not just the communication, the verbal communication to reach out to friends when you're feeling in a certain way. Now we're talking about social media, and we're talking about how the newer generations are communicating to each other in order to stay connected. But it also brings me back to the topic of the bullying. What is the bully trying to communicate? We focused a lot on the perspective of the person being bullied and how they need support, and how, having friends can help them endure a lot of these things. But it also talks about how a lack of being able to effectively communicate your emotions, whether verbally or other different types of ways, can lead to this type of ineffective connections or friendships or relationships. Those that resort to the violence of, what they were saying of blame, shame, regret, guilt. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is good. I'm hearing now some things pop up in terms of we're kind of drawing all this towards some skills, right? Some interpersonal skills. Sometimes it's not very clear. We in the kind of like community agency, mental health world, we can translate these things to thinking about skills. For some folks, it's just what they do, but we can be more intentional about them. So things like communication. Andi made a great comment in the chat about vulnerability and empathy being key to going deeper in relationships. And got me thinking about the sense that vulnerability and empathy are almost like lock and key, right? That an authentic experience of empathy invites us to be more vulnerable, and vice versa, right? That if somebody can receive that vulnerability from a place of empathy, then it can go deeper, right? And communication is kind of the vehicle for that. So maybe this is a great segue. So great job, everybody. In terms of Andi, Cynthia, I'd especially like to invite you to share on this a bit about what are some, in addition to things like communication and empathy, what are some social emotional skills that are especially valuable in developing friendships at this stage of life, right? The transitional age, 16 to 24, 25 age range. What do you think are some important skills, and how might somebody go about trying to gain those skills?
I can go. I think it's very important, most of all, to the self-awareness, to be really insightful about our abilities to be able to either communicate, connect, to be empathetic, our behaviors or any blocks or challenges that we may have when it comes to, again, connecting with others. Because without that self-awareness, we're not going to be able to, let's say, amend or correct or even be able to accept when there's a need for change, or if we're doing something that's not healthy for either us or for the other person in this relationship. Without that basic skill of self-awareness, it's going to be really difficult to be able to establish healthy connections. I would say that that's one of the main ones.
Yeah. So it really almost, we're talking about a relationship, but it really starts almost internally. It starts in terms of a certain level of self-awareness. Now, if I'm someone who is self-aware enough to know I could be more self-aware, how do I gain self-awareness if I'm maybe don't have it, or I want to increase it, or what are some thoughts you have about how to develop that?
I think one of the main skills to be able to do that is listening, and the key to listening is not just listening to be able to get informed or know what the other person's talking about, but it's listening to understand, right? Listening to understand and really, again, be part of the experience. A lot of times we listen to others and what they're saying just to be able to know what to reply, or just to be able to think about what I'm going, how I'm going to interact in this conversation, right? But it's more about understanding what's going on, because that will allow us to see if there are any, again, traits about ourselves that are impacting these connections again. So listening, but really to understand, not just to interact.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of kind of a healthy feedback loop in terms of the more I'm able to listen intently and listen to understand, the more I can develop some self-awareness, right? The more I'm encountering others, the more I can become self-aware. The more I'm self-aware, the more I have a capacity to encounter others. So it kind of builds over time.
Yes.
Right?
And boundaries is also going to be really important, you know. Boundaries is also going to be really important when we're talking about, you know, the skills necessary.
Yeah.
Because not just the ability to set those boundaries, but to respect others as well. So those are a few of the ones that come to my mind right now.
You know, Cynthia, that's a question for us later on. So maybe I should invite you to, if you're open to it, to share a little bit about that now. How might one begin to think about and learn to implement boundaries in friendships?
Well, there's many different types of boundaries. If you want to go into that, there's many different types of boundaries. And first we need to identify and understand what boundaries are. I think that there is this misconception that boundaries is, you know, saying no and sticking to it and being rigid about it. A lot of people who misunderstand boundaries don't know that there can be inflexible boundaries, that they don't have to be rigid, right? So I think that the main thing would be understanding that there are, you know, physical boundaries, emotional boundaries, sexual boundaries, of course, even intellectual boundaries. There's many different types of boundaries. For example, an example of an intellectual boundary would be discussing religion at the workplace. You know, I don't want to talk about that, or that's not something that I talk about, you know, during, you know, at work is a good way of setting those boundaries. But again, also understanding that boundaries can be flexible. It doesn't necessarily mean that always saying no or always sticking to what I want to do or what I want to say or not do is having healthy boundaries. There has to be some flexibility. There has to be a bit of a give and take concession when coming to that healthy midpoint of an appropriate boundary.
Yeah.
Respecting others, but then also not allowing others to cross our boundaries.
Yeah. So it kind of goes both directions, but there's in a couple of ways, right? Respecting the boundaries of others, learning, having enough self-awareness and personal health to be able to recognize that and do that. At the same time, expecting others to consistently to respect our boundaries. But at the same time, recognizing the boundaries isn't just about putting up a wall. It also can be about learning where I can be more relaxed and more comfortable and more diffuse in my relationship to somebody else. Yeah. So if I have this awareness about boundaries, but I don't really know how to manage boundaries, either to know when I should be more relaxed in my boundaries or to know when I should put up a bit more of a firm boundary. And what does that even look like? How might I learn to do that?
Oh yeah, this does come into a bit of a more deep issue of how do I know what a healthy boundary looks like and how do I set those or how do I respect them? Because we also have to understand that boundaries may be cultural, that they vary depending on culture, that they vary depending on, you know, one household to another, that they may vary depending on one person to another. So I think bottom line, it's what makes you feel comfortable, right? What makes you feel comfortable, but at the same time, like you said, it's the give and take. It's not just about what makes me comfortable, but also having that awareness of the other person's level of comfort, right? So a healthy boundary is not just knowing what makes me comfortable and being able to set those limits, but also taking some interest in even asking the other people. That's, for example, let's talk about physical boundaries. I might be a hugger and I like to hug people, but there may be people who don't like physical touch or hugs. Just by asking first, can I give you a hug? Is a good way of learning how to respect boundaries. But then you might, bump into someone else who loves hugs, right? So boundaries, again, are not, healthy boundaries are not a set thing that you can, have a checklist of this is, what you do or what you don't do. It's more about that awareness of what makes me comfortable, but also asking or understanding what the other person prefers as well. Asking more than anything, right?
Yeah.
And communicating your own.
Yeah, that's great, Cynthia. I'm seeing in a lot of ways, and Andi, now I'd love to hear from you too, what social emotional skills are especially valuable for this age range. But also I'd love to hear your comments about boundaries and that kind of thing. I'm thinking too, from what I'm kind of putting together from our conversation so far, is that a lot of ways boundaries are something that come out of some of these more foundational skills and tools, some self-awareness. What is it I need in a relationship? Active listening. What do the people in my life need, right, from me or expect from me? Empathy, to understand that what that other person needs or is comfortable with in the relationship is appropriate for them, and I need to respect that. While also being vulnerable enough to share with somebody I'm in a relationship with when maybe I feel like a boundary has been violated, or I'm realizing I need a boundary where I didn't once have one, Yeah, so Andi, I'd love to hear from you in terms of what are some of those social emotional skills that are especially valuable in developing friendships at this age, and then hear from you a little bit about boundaries as well, if you have some thoughts.
Sure, I know. I was listening. I forgot what I was going to say. That was great. Thank you, Cynthia. But yeah, I think that, I looked up Daniel Goleman too. He's the emotional intelligence kind of leader, and the 5 key elements in his opinion are self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and basic social skills. And I think those 5, and I'll put those in the chat too, are definitely the starting points and the basic elements to it. I think self-regulation is huge, so that you know also how to manage your own emotions in friendships and in conflict, which is inevitable in friendships, how to manage that on your own. And then an empathy, as we talked about. I think actually a piece that I'll add to what Cynthia said was people pleasing is really interesting. And I'll speak almost from my personal experience, because that's been a huge part that I've had to work through and continue to work through, is people pleasing. And how do you exist in a friend group when you're really wanting to fit in, belong, but then also maintaining your sense of self or in boundaries, and saying, this is actually what I prefer. This is what I'm okay with, and I think especially at young ages, that's a huge thing that we need to keep teaching and keep learning, so that when we are adults, we know how to navigate that too. So I think that really looks like it's okay to say no. If you're not comfortable with that, just say no. And I think that does take practice, actually. But just saying, no, I'm not comfortable with that. No. I think that it's also realizing that other people might not always fill your bucket. You have to fill your own bucket, and not to look to that from everybody. It's also evaluating your circle and seeing like who is close to me and who can I confide in, who can I have those deeper relationships with, more intimate, where it's a safe place, and then who's an acquaintance or on my social media circle, but not there. And I think, it might sound weird to rate or something, but also just to be mindful so that you're not also hurting yourself by opening up to those who might not be a safe space, and to really see who you can rely on and who is your support system in those harder moments. But those are just some things that came to mind.
That's great. And it's really cohesive and comprehensive in terms of, I love the reference to, you know, emotional intelligence and Daniel Goleman. That summary is a really great one, really helpful one to think about. How can I focus my efforts to build these skills, right? There's a really great summary of some of the key ones. I also really appreciated, you know, yeah, it can seem weird to rank the people in our lives, but I think we are, in our conversation, we're identifying some important ways that one can think about that. You know, what are my friendships where I know that either I know, or if it's a newer friendship, I have a strong suspicion that this is a person that will share, they give me empathy, that I can express myself to, that I can be vulnerable with, and I can be received, right? That may not be the person that I follow on Instagram who follows me and we've chatted a couple of times, you know, via DM, you know, maybe it is, but it also may not be. And so being aware of what are my needs in a moment, right? And who are the people I'm in a relationship with that I can go to for, you know, that appropriate need, right? Somebody I already have that connection, intimacy with, or for whom I think the ingredients are there, right, for me to have that, and I want to explore the possibility of that becoming a more intimate friendship. You know, but also bearing in mind there are people in my life who are maybe more acquaintances, but may not be those safe people, right?
Right. It's the boundaries that exist in friendship too, in a sense, where you want to make sure you're also protecting your own heart too with those as well. Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that, like, I recently lost a best friend and we were really close, and something that is important to realize and recognize is it mutual? Is it like what you're sharing in your vulnerability mutual? And if it's not, and if it's off balance, then it's like probably time to let go of that friend, because you're sharing so much of yourself and you're being so vulnerable and they're not doing the same. It can cause a lot of problems in the friendship, and you might think that you're at the same level, like, you know, you're talking about leveling your friends. It's really important to do that in your head, if not, like, just to do it in your head to protect your own heart and your own emotions, because I ended up being really hurt, and because I was being more open and being more vulnerable than she was, and ultimately that led to me being more hurt than her because of that. So I think, yeah, definitely just making sure that the friendship is mutual and you guys are both sharing the same amount of vulnerability.
You know, that I want to share a quote that I found from Bessel van der Kolk, the author of The Body Keeps the Score. You know, not that you're talking about, you know, hurting or, you know, feeling safe in relationships. He wrote, more than anything else, being able to feel safe with other people defines mental health. Safe connections are fundamental to meaningful and satisfying lives. You know, it brought me to that because it seems like we're circling back to the feeling safe, the feeling that I can trust that person, that they're not going to hurt me. And something that Joy said also, that it's reciprocal, you know, that it goes back and forth, that it's not just one-sided. I just wanted to share that because I thought it was really important what Joy said.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Joy. Thank you for sharing a bit about your experience. That really actually invites one of our other questions that I'd love to hear from all of you. And Joy, Anna, maybe you can, if you're comfortable, you can kick us off. But, you know, in this kind of time of life, really at any period of significant transition in life, one of the things that changes or can change is who's in our lives, right? What roles do they play? So friendships becoming closer, becoming more distant, ending, beginning, right? So how can one best manage the shifting away from old friendships that can sometimes happen, right, at this age, especially including the feelings of grief or loss that might come along with that?
So I think it's really normal that like, especially at our age, like we don't connect and we don't see our friends as much. Like it's really hard to even like, even with me and Joy, like sometimes it's like, oh, well, I work these days. I work the days that you have off, and like she works the days that I have off. So it's really hard. And one of the things that we do, which is like really sweet, is we write letters to each other, just to show that like I still care about you, and like I still am like setting this time aside for you, even though I can't see you. Like you still mean a lot to me, and like I'm gonna make this cute little card, and I'm gonna show you how much you still mean to me, just by doing this. Like I may not be able to see you right now, but like this is just like, just for now, like I'm gonna send you a letter, and then like we also just like check in every now and then, like, hey, how are you doing? Like just like update me on what's going on. Like maybe someday we'll get coffee again. And it's just like you have to understand that like everyone's busy, everybody has a life going on, like, and so yeah, just being understanding of that I think is really important, because we might sometimes take it personal that like, oh, they don't want to see me, but that's not the case. Like we're just all busy.
Yeah, that's great. Michelle's shouting out in the chat, love the letter communication. Me too. I think it's a really beautiful intentional action in the days of like we can just text somebody or call them or FaceTime. That kind of quick communication, taking the time to really be intentional, is a really beautiful thing. Yeah, thanks, Hannah.
I think to add, you mentioned, what was the question again? It was like, how can we?
Yeah. So I'll read it through again. So it's how can one best manage the shifting away from old friendships that sometimes happens in life transitions like this age, and including the feelings of grief or loss that might come along with that.
Yeah. So for me, I think that an important thing to do is just to be able to look back on your friendships that you've had, whether you're not friends with them anymore or you haven't talked with them in a while, and just kind of just appreciate that time, and like just to like accept it. Like you may not be friends with them anymore, but you can still appreciate that time and that you had together. Because that was a part of my healing journey with losing my best friend. It was just like being able to look back and smile and be thankful for that time. Because while it might have ended a little rocky or not the best way, I was still able to like think like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I had her as a friend in 7th grade all the way to college. Like I'm so thankful for that. And really shifting that mindset and being able to be thankful is very healing, and it allows you to move on and open yourself up to new friendships, and really just have your eyes open for a possible new friend that could give you those same memories or different memories. Like just being accepting of the past is really huge.
That's great.
Can I add on to like the grief part actually?
Yeah.
I think like especially for me, like right now in my like stage of life, I've kind of come to realize that like some people are gonna come in your life and some are gonna stay and some are not. And for me, it's really hard for me to like open up to someone because I get scared that like, oh, what if they leave? But it's okay. Like it's okay if they leave. They were still part of your life at that moment, and that moment it was still special, and that nothing's gonna take that away, like whether they leave or not, because people are gonna come in your life regardless. You're gonna meet so many people, and they're gonna come at different stages, and they're gonna help you through those stages. And like sometimes it's just not beneficial anymore. And like I think that's really hard for some people to understand, like that friendship's just not benefiting you anymore. It's not helping you grow. So like it's just okay to let go of it and like find somebody new who is gonna help you grow and who's gonna help you in a new stage of your life.
Yeah, and sorry to add to that, just about the growing is realizing that we are growing human beings and that we're not going to be the same person forever. And just because you're not friends with someone anymore doesn't mean that you didn't connect at one point, but it just means that you're growing in separate directions and you're growing apart. And it's best to find those people that are moving in the same direction as you anyway, because you don't want to stay friends with someone who's the same, like who relates to you 10 years ago, or who, you want to be an ever growing person. So it's really great to, be thankful for that, but then also realize, oh my gosh, I'm growing. I need to find people who are going to relate to me right now,
Yeah, that's great. Also, I'm loving the dynamic duo situation between you and Anna, the back and forth. It's great. Yeah, this sense that I'm growing, right? Not just seeing this as a transition, as a time of loss, but also a time of growth. And there are other people who I may connect with at a new level, right? Based on where I'm at in my life. It's also a sense too, as you kind of like over time, I'm sure some folks have experienced this, that friendships at times come in and out of your lives, not necessarily in a bad way, right? But like, I might be going a different direction at some point than a friend of mine. We might be experiencing life, big life moments in different paces, but at times we might catch up, our paths might cross again, and that friendship might be rekindled. But that doesn't mean either way that we always need to hang on or allow a friendship remain the same way it once was. There's new opportunity. Maybe that's part of how we think about the grief and losses. Sitting with that, being honest about the experience of loss, but recognizing there's new horizons, new possibilities around the corner. Andi, Cynthia, as we wrap up, any further thoughts on that subject?
You know what? I had made a list of, how to manage a loss or a transition of a friendship, but Joy and Anna touched on every single one of those items on my list.
That's great.
That's why I'm smiling so much, because, they just really touched on the important things on, how to grieve, how to move on, not to take it personal, to allow yourself to have those feelings, to write about it, reach out, but respect if they can't, finding new friendships, honor the good times, all the things that I had on my list. You guys already spoke about it. So, I'm just really pleased by your ability to, conceptualize friendships.
Yes. So healing for me too, to listen to that. And I feel like that was great advice for me. And then, yeah, I think to wrap it up full circle too, we're saying how friends tell you who you are, but then also, loss of a friend doesn't mean that who you are needs to change significantly either. I think going back to just, building yourself back up and having both compassion for others and then self-compassion too, and not losing sight of who you are, just because friendships do change and that's very natural. But yeah, great. I loved the back and forth too, and it was really insightful. Thank you.
Yeah. Andi, thank you for kind of summing that up for us. I think it was really well done. I'm thinking, first off, there is never enough time in these conversations. I always want to keep going because there's so much more, I think, to talk about. But I think what we've covered today has been a really great foundation in terms of, it's so easy to think practically, right? This is the flip side of empathy we were talking about, right? It's always so easy to think about things like lack of friendship as a problem that needs to be solved, right? And so how do we help young people, young adults? How do we encourage the people in our lives to find new friendships? Oh, join a club. Oh, go do this. Oh, that kind of thing. But we really kind of spent some time on a really important personal level, building a foundation of what is a friendship? What is a healthy friendship? What is a friendship that is supportive of mental wellness? Joy, exactly. Quality over quantity is key, right? What does it look like to find quality in our friendships and invest in friendships in ways that produce that kind of quality, that kind of intimacy? So thank you all. Really wonderful insights. As we're wrapping up, I'm realizing a couple of things. One, I'm a little rusty, so I did not spend time at the beginning saying who we are. So in case you're new and you're wondering, what is this and why am I here? This is the monthly meeting of the Connect with C Coalition. The Connect with C Coalition is a county healthcare agency, Office of Suicide Prevention funded coalition that seeks to take existing mental health resources here in Orange County and make them better known to transitional age youth, ages 16 to 24, their friends, their family, the people who are supporting them in their lives, much like we were talking about today. how do we make those resources better known, get people better connected to them, and overall, so we say marshal are the resources that exist here in the county to better support the mental health of young adults here in the county. So we do that through a few ways, this meeting being one of them. To find out some more of the ways that we do that, visit connect-oc.org. I'm sure somebody from our team can put that in the chat. But again, thank you all for joining. The meeting is still going to continue on. We're going to end the panel discussion for now. Thank you, Joy, Anna, Andi, Cynthia, for joining us. We're going to shift into some new stuff. I will also be shifting away from the meeting right now. I've got something that I have to unfortunately get to at right now, but Crystal and Sarah and Joy, and I don't know, I didn't see if Vivi was on, but are going to be here. Sarah's going to take the lead from here and help us work through or go through the updates for Connect to See and for you all. So again, thank you all, and it was nice to be with you, and I will see you all soon. Take care.
Hi, David. All right. Yeah, those are some really awesome conversations that we were able to have. I know for me personally, what just like came to me, I've actually been kind of in this place where I've been feeling distant from friends just because I'm in a new season of life right now. So it was just really like encouraging to be able to just kind of like take a step back and just understand that, you know, like I'm busy, I'm in the season of life, but like my friends aren't going anywhere and my friends still love and care for me. And that they're just one text, they're one phone call away, they're one coffee date away. So yeah, it's just super encouraging to hear about that. And thank you all panelists who have put in their time and effort into just pouring into us in this coalition meeting. So I really appreciated that. I just wanted to say that. As for Connect OC updates, Crystal did put in the chat our survey link. So if you could do that really quick, it's just a couple minutes just to help us improve on our coalition and meetings in the future. We would really appreciate that if you could do that for us, as well as a few updates from us. So as you probably already know, we do have a new young adult advisory committee that we have started. I actually am the one leading it. And we would love to have any young adults that you think would be great for this committee who are just passionate about mental health and just want to have a voice and take part in who the Orange County health mental health field is and how they are, and just having a voice in that. If you know anybody that is interested or you think of anyone, feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat in a bit. We also have an event coming up this month or this next month in September surrounding hope and recovery when it comes to poor states of mental health and suicide, just being suicidal and how to kind of overcome that and leave on a positive note. That's going to be great. So look out for flyers and things like that for that. And then we also have a couple of collaborations of mental health resource fairs with both UCI and Cal State Fullerton. So also look out for more information on that. We'll probably send something out regarding that as well. That's coming in the future for those students. And then I'm going to hand it over to Andi, who's going to talk about the awesome event that's actually, I think, tomorrow with BULOC, the Back to You event. So go ahead, Andi.
Thanks, Sarah. Sorry, I didn't mean to put that in the chat while you're talking, but those are great updates. I'm really excited for those. So switching gears, Back to You is tomorrow, and it's a day dedicated to you. It's all about self-care. It's kind of back to school too, so it is open to all ages actually, but really focusing on your own physical, emotional, and spiritual wellness. So we'll have yoga in the morning by Uplift Teen Yoga, and it will be teen-led actually. So 2 teen teachers from Uplift Teen Yoga Foundation will be leading yoga at 10. It'll start at 10:30, but you can arrive at 10. There'll be vendor fairs. We're really excited for Partners for Wellness and Connect OC to be there. And then there'll also be, as I mentioned, free coffee from Moon Goat. And then also lunch, Mediterranean food for free. And then in the afternoon, there's self-defense class led by Green Family Training Center. So you can learn some cool moves in the afternoon. We're really excited for it and hope you can join us. And there'll be some swag too. And just a great day to connect with other community partners in Orange County. It's at Bonita Canyon Sports Park, and it's west. So if you put down the pickleball courts in your GPS, you'll be able to get there. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll drop my email in the chat. And we're also looking for volunteers if you want to help volunteer. I know it's tomorrow, but feel free to let me know if you're interested as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Andi. And if this we'll take the time, if anybody has any updates from your organization, feel free to raise your hand and I can call on you.
Oh, hi.
Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
Hi. I just wanted to share a date on the horizon if anyone is able to come. It's for November 12th in Laguna Beach in the Cobblestone area at Main Beach. We're doing an event with the Ability Awareness Project, which prevents cyberbullying. It's a really important organization. And once a year, you're able to nominate youth for kindness awards. Last year, I nominated 2 lovely ladies and the mayor gives them a kindness award. It's really wonderful for self-esteem, increasing community connection. And it's going on from 10 to 5 p.m. And it ends with Tibetan monks are going to teach yoga at 5 o'clock. So it's going to be a really beautiful community wellness day. It's free and it's November 12th. So just wanted to throw that out there. Once we have a flyer, I'll share it.
Great. Thank you so much. I will go on to Shell. Oh,
hopefully my connection holds. Hi, everybody. Yeah, it's going in and out, so sorry. Nice to see everyone. I'm with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention here locally in Orange County. And based on the conversation today, I just wanted to remind everyone that we're actually booking for 2 of our updated or brand new suicide prevention education programs. One of them is called It's Real, Teens and Suicide. That can be either virtual or in person. And then we have a brand new one, which is called Finding Hope, Supporting, it's brand new, Guidance for Supporting Those at Risk. So it's for families and friends who are supporting those with lived experience. That has to be done in person. It's a 2.5-hour, really comprehensive presentation that several of us, would join in giving. And if you want some more information on that, I put my info in the chat. And also, I just wanted to, Nancy Cooper and I wanted to invite everybody to our annual walk, which is called Out of the Darkness. It's our suicide prevention walk that we have every year. It's at UCI on September 10th. And I'll put all of the info and the links to join us in the chat as well. And we do have some space left for some of our resource partners. If you're interested in joining us, we'd love to have you there. So just, send me an email message. That would be great if you could join us. Thanks for the time. Good to see everybody.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to Janice.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be back here. My name is Janice Williams. I am kind of the outreach and engagement for both Mind OC and Be Well. Mind OC and Mecca, I'm sorry. I'm always mixing those up, but it's new position. I am going to put in the chat. We are having a youth-centered conference on September 17th at the Boys and Girls Club in Westminster. It's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And besides, of course, inviting you, we would like you to invite a friend to come and talk, listen to the points we have about mental health and mental wellness. Also substance use disorder. We want to talk to everyone because of the fact that we have the crisis with the fentanyl that's out there. So we just want everyone to be in a safe space, be able to talk, learn. There will be free lunch and snacks. So that always gets me to events. So that's something that I bring up all the time. But I would love to see everyone here coming and joining us on September 17th.
Johnny's, I have a
Yeah.
question. Do you, like, I'm meeting some moms who have lost their kids by fentanyl homicide. Would you like them there? So we're trying to get more groups.
That
Or is
is a
this for like
good-
partners or kids or what?
This
What is your audience?
It is actually for Tay. So it is for the youth as well as transitional youth, I'm sorry. So right now, that's what we're focusing on, but that is a great subject, Michelle, for us to focus on as well.
I'm working on that, but when it's updated, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Awesome, thank
Very
you.
sad.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you both. Is anyone else wanting to give any partner updates at this time? Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
Thanks. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for the presentation. It's interesting how you can hear things reframed, even though it's an ongoing conversation that we all know, but there were little nuggets that each of you said that I so appreciate. You know, I've always looked at myself as an equal to someone who's 5-year-old or 80 years old, but I will have to say to hear younger voices join that conversation in such an eloquent way and putting it into practice, you know, really inspired me. So I appreciate that. I did want to also just mention that from our organization, Casa de la Familia, we're strictly a mental health organization for the past 25 years here in Orange County and LA and San Gabriel Valley. I just wanted to highlight that by way of a grant, we are able to offer free counseling and services for anyone who has been a victim of sexual assault or sexual abuse and can see children as young as 4 years old. Although we're currently conducting telehealth, I'll just say on the side, although we don't always announce it, but there are those cases deemed by the clinician that if that clinician so thinks, we can also see them in person in Santa Ana. So just wanted to let you all know that we do make those exceptions, but please reach out to us. Leslie Rosso from the Family Justice Center in Santa Ana is on this as well. Casa de la Familia runs that office. And so, you know, we have advocates out there as well as at the Anaheim Family Justice Center. So please utilize us in gaining more resources. And again, thank you for the conversation. It was very enlightening.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. Just a quick reminder, if everyone who sent flyers into the chat, if you could also send them to either to Crystal, just email them to her so that we can get those flyers out onto our next newsletter and things like that. Sometimes they just don't download right in the chat. So it would be great if you could just send a quick email to her and hand those over as well. Do we have anybody else before we sign off today? Go ahead, Lauren.
Hi, thank you. Just wanted to let everyone know that we are doing the Together for Teens conference on Saturday, October 1st at Capistrano Valley High School, and Andi is on the planning committee and they'll also be presenting. Maybe about a year ago, Kara Long was here from Teens for Teens Help, and she's going to be our keynote speaker. So she'll be coming down and talking about her journey and the Teens for Teens Help program. And then we'll have breakout sessions for teens and breakout sessions for parents. Uplift Yoga is joining us, a music therapist, a lot of Bloom Foundation, Tilly's Life Center. So a lot of great partners on this. And I'll put the flyer in the chat. And this would be for middle and high school age students, and then parents or guardians or just any adult who's interested in attending. And then I also wanted to let everyone know that if you know any pre-licensed bilingual therapists, we are looking to hire somebody. And so I know this is a great community to share that in. So if you have any contacts, the position would be in San Juan Capistrano. So sometimes people don't want to travel so far south, but if you know anybody that would be interested, you can reach out to me and we can get them the information about that position. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, anyone else? All right. Well, I guess we can end a few minutes early today. Thank you all for coming, and we really appreciate your time, and we hope you have a great weekend. Go to the Back to You event tomorrow. It'll be such a great one. We will be there, and come say hi to us at that event. And yeah, everyone have a great weekend. Thank you so much again.
And just a reminder, our next meeting is September 30th, for those that don't have it on the calendar. Thanks, everyone.